So, speaking of Lindsey Graham, don't forget everything he said about the current felon in the White House, the felon in chief. He was 100% accurate about prior to him being elected. And it's so aggravating to see these people who won't stand on business. You won't even stand on your own word about this man. You flip flop, you turn into a jellyfish. Once he gets in office, and everything that you said, including the vice president, J.D. Vance, everything they said about him was correct and accurate in their description, and then they just totally folded when it came time to go, for power. So you see how desperate and how unscrupulous these people are. They don't care. You can't listen to anything that they say and hold it as truthful, because you see these kind of things, these type of accusations. Graham was absolutely correct in his depiction and description, but he totally flip-flopped once he got in office.
Yeah, well, look, we're teaching our kids the same way we taught them 100 years ago.
The Attorney General should be the law.
We flipping tables, breaking chains.
I think one of the things we have
Unapologetically black in our veins, no apologies for how we rise. Black excellence before your
I mentioned earlier that my background is also in healthcare. I worked in
We built the culture from the ground.
white female for
Hey, family. Welcome to another episode of the Flipping Tables podcast on the Black Man's Roundtable Network. We have another jam-packed, unapologetically black episode for you today. Bobby, how's it going, brother?
Going good. Appreciate you asking.
Absolutely. Look, as folks can see, man, we do not have Mr. Rodney J. Littles here tonight on this episode. But however, he has another Rodney Adams that may be coming in for him today. He is scheduled to guest co-host, but he is having a few technical difficulties. So maybe he'll come in here in a little bit when after the show starts. But otherwise, he's ready. He's good to go. He has a great topic for you tonight. And in fact, Bobby, let me let the folks know what we're going to be talking about tonight as far as our topics before we bring out our exceptional, wonderful guest today. Bobby, I'm going first, so I'm going to be talking about this Mitch McConnell and what's his face, Lindsey Graham, with all their little health issues and everything. But I'm gonna focus in on a specific thing, so I want for our audience to wait for that, because there's a whole bunch of things that's to be said about those two people. But I'm going to focus in on something very specific that I think is relevant to our community. And Bobby, what you going to be talking about this evening?
Well, I'm going to be talking about that great Iran deal we had with Iran to end the quote-unquote war in Iran that has since been breached. So I want to go into that this evening.
Okay, good. And Rodney Adams, he's scheduled to go last. So, okay, gotcha. Yeah, exactly. Rodney Adams, he's scheduled to go last if he can fix his issues and get back on here. And he's going to be talking about the real effects of corporate greed on the economy. So that'll round off the topics for this episode. But look, before we get started with all of that, like I said, we have a wonderful guest on today. And without further ado, I'm going to get ready to bring him out. I've been, as some of you longtime followers know, that I've been collabing with some brothers in Chicago as far as some of the initiatives and different things that they are doing to help bring the brothers of these two wonderful cities, Chicago and Atlanta, together. And so that is what the gentleman we have coming on this evening for. We've had I think we've had one or two brothers from Chicago to come on already, and I think he's either the second or the third one. So we're looking very forward to it. His name is Mr. Castellano Dear, and he is going to talk about today this initiative that he has that is called Five Bands of Brotherhood. And he is the founder of that initiative. He also have an upcoming book that's going to be, I think, released next month. And it is called The Return of the Divine Masculine Spirit. He's going to talk to us a little bit about that today. So without further ado, Castellano, how's it going, brother?
Everything is well. I'm extremely happy to be here with you guys today.
Great, man. Look, it's good to have you on. We've been trying to get the next brother from Chicago on, and luckily, man, we were going to have you come on a little bit down the road. But what happened is, hey, as soon as we had someone, man, to kind of reschedule, I said, okay, boom, it is time to get that brother Castellano on from Chicago, and we were able to get you on. So look, Castellano, tell the folks about this initiative, man, this Five Bands of Brotherhood initiative that you have founded up there in Chicago.
Well, the Five Bands of Brotherhood is an organization that is underway. We're kind of like in preliminary stages right now. And what we're doing is we're looking at the wholeness of the Black man. We're looking at a man in the aspect of his mind, body, spirit, economic development, and leadership. So we're really excited working with brothers. We've gotten a lot of great feedback talking to men around the Chicago area, Atlanta, and Houston. And right now we're just excited, I have to tell you.
Okay, great, man. Also, share a little bit about. Now, I understand that it's definitely about bringing men together. I guess that's the whole band of brotherhood. Could you go a little bit in depth about how what's the I guess what's the metric of bringing that together, because it's not easy to do. We have been culturally conditioned as Black men and as Black people in our communities, man, to not look at, to not be as unified as maybe we should be. So if you could just talk about that a little bit, and what's your plan to make that happen.
I think you're absolutely correct in saying that. That's a lot of devices that have been created in our society that I think has caused separatism and individualism, especially amongst men. One of the ways that we're going about this is that we're actually, within our organization, the Five Bands of Brotherhood is an engine. So within the organization, we're actually going to group 5 men together. And with these 5 men, they're making a commitment to one another to check in on each other on a regular basis. How's your health? How's your family life? How's everything going in your job? We're just looking at creating a space whereby which men can come together, express themselves, but also have the resources to better themselves in areas that they feel that needs to be strengthened. And that's what we're here for.
Gotcha. And so I'm visualizing that these bands of brothers, obviously each band is 5 men, and so obviously there are multiple bands happening at one time. And
Absolutely.
so how do you bring those men together? Do they have to have stuff in common? Is it just straight random? What is the process or the metric in bringing these men together?
I guess the best way to really paint a picture for you is that, earlier this year, probably around the start of the year when we all are reflecting, we're going into our New Year resolution, I kind of took an inward look at myself. I took an opportunity to kind of like evaluate my life as a man, mistakes that I made growing up as a man, taking on challenges that I may not necessarily were equipped to take on. I got married at the age of 22, was happily to take on that task. I had a beautiful, beautiful child. And one thing I noticed looking in my life that good intentions weren't always enough. So when I started writing down, things that I had dealt with, what I began to look at was that, man, there's a lot of interesting things here that's probably happening to a lot of men. So that kind of led me into writing a book, which is the return of the divine masculine spirit. And when I started really just pouring my heart into the book and really just talking about things and challenges that I went through and talking with other brothers, it kind of led me to, okay, well, what's the solution after this? We can talk about our pitfalls, we could talk about our scars, but it should lead to something productive. It should lead to something that's going to be a better tomorrow, right? So that's where the organization came from. Last month, which was Men's Mental Health Month, I took the opportunity to really go to some roundtable meetings, really focusing in on mental health for men that I really had not paid any attention to in my entire life as a man. But going to some of these tables, I realized that a lot of us are dealing with some of the same problems, whether it's family issues, whether it's problems that we're having on our job, whatever it is, we as men, for some reason, find it hard to connect with other men. We find it very hard to just sit down and say, hey, brother, I'm having an issue with this, or, have you ever experienced anything such as this? Can you help me? We just don't do that. We tend to learn how to heal ourselves in silence. And a lot of times that healing doesn't fully take place because we just learn to suppress it and keep on moving. So with the five bands of brotherhood, what we're looking at is bringing men together from all walks of life. It'll be an opportunity for men who, not necessarily all of us have problems. I've had a lot of great success in life, right? So I have the ability to pour into a younger entrepreneur, or there may be a gentleman who has put in 50 years of marriage. He may be a great mentor for a young man in his 30s who is looking to get married and raise a family. So by bringing men together and just have an opportunity to collaborate with one another, to create a safe space so that we could just talk. I think everything really starts with talking, but talking is not enough, right? We need some resources. We need to have some valuable tools that's really going to take us to the next level. So looking at that, when you look at the mind, the body, the spirit, the economic development and leadership skills, especially within our family and in our community, we have a lot of professionals in our community. We have a lot of great men in our community that can speak specifically to all of those what we call pillars of a man. So in that, those men can come to the table where we have life coaches, we have therapists, we have individuals who work in the health industry, especially in holistic wellness. These men can come sit down and talk with other brothers who specialize in issues that really may be bottling us down, that we can get some valuable tools.
Great, thank you for that. We're going to move into the book in a second here, but before we do, and before I let Bobby jump into the portion about the five bands, I think I have, well, I may have more than one more question, but my next question for you is, in your research, in doing, in coming up with this initiative and coming up with this group and this organization, even as well as your book, in your research, what has been your number one finding in as to why it is so difficult for Black men to come together and to get on one accord for the betterment of our communities?
I'm going to answer that in two questions. When you first started your question about what is the thing that doing my research that really kind of was that wow factor,
Okay.
for me, it was suicide. As Black men, we have become the highest statistics of suicide amongst per 100,000 people in America. Um, right now, we're leading from the ages of 14 to 19. As men between ages of 20 to 24, we're close. I think we're like at 39%, just shortly behind our counterparts as Caucasian whites in this country. That to me was very alarming because those are numbers that have spiked almost 40% over the last 10 years. And a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists, they really don't have a concrete answer to why that is. A lot of that could be related to social media. I looked at some studies that a group of psychologists did that social media may be playing a part, especially between the ages of 14 and 19. But they also looked at the high rates of divorces in our community. We also lead in that category. So those two categories are very, very disturbing, you know. So looking at that, how do we come together as brothers? I think it starts by talking. I think it starts by reaching out to one another. It takes me to call Bobby, to call Rodney, and just say, hey, how are you? Is everything going okay with you? Just speaking to those five pillars: mental health, your spiritual life, and your economic development, along with your leadership skills. And speaking of spirituality, we really want to horn in our organization that we do not push any specific religious doctrine. We really want this to be open for all brothers to feel comfortable to come in, and they don't have to worry about being judged. We acknowledge you as a man, we respect you as a man, and we're willing to see you where you are. So we usually leave our religion at the door just so that we can connect as men. And we're finding that that has really been a big, big issue because as men, sometimes we are willing to find some of the strangest reasons for divisiveness and for difference. And if we start debating about religion, a lot of brothers will be talking from here to start snowing in Chicago. It's ridiculous.
Bobby, please jump in, sir. Do you have anything for him about this
Y-
on the
Yeah,
five
he
bands?
actually he actually answered the question I was going to ask, which was about
Mm,
pretty much about retention. How do you, and he
okay.
said he would, follow up by checking up on brothers after they've come in, or as far as this part of the program. I think that's very important. But interesting to hear you throw out those statistics as well regarding suicide. I would not have guessed, especially between the ages of 14 and 19, that we will be number one in that category, which is alarming, highly alarming as to what our children are seeing, and to get to that stage where they give up on life. Extremely disturbing to hear those numbers and to hear that we're behind Caucasians. What was the second category you had mentioned? With mental health,
We also, yeah, we're also leading between the ages of 20 to 24.
20 to
So we're
24.
we're
So
kind of like having those serious issues before we even step into manhood.
right,
And
right.
we haven't really developed the tools to really maneuver this earth rim that we're walking on, and for brothers to feel the need to kind of like give up on life at such a tender age is mind boggling.
It is, and you hear more people now talk about therapy amongst our people. We need to be seeing more therapists, or just to have some kind of an outlet to get out what we hold a lot inside. And I think listening to you, is that one of the goals that may not be mentioned specifically on paper, but is that one of the goals that your organization would be trying to do, to get more black men to basically speak out to their issues and to know that they can talk with someone in a time of trouble?
That is absolutely it. If I were to give the number one, number two out of those five pillars, it definitely would be, our mental health and also our economic development. So having therapists in the group, having life coaches in the group, having individuals that can really speak to issues of family, issues of divorce, issues of grief, it's something that we as men tend to suffer in silence with. I give you a prime example. I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was just a group of men who met at a coffee shop. But the reason that they met was around Men's Mental Health Month. So they were talking about grief. And with that particular topic, one gentleman who actually was a clinical therapist spoke about in his own personal life how he was dealing with the loss of loved ones, and he had no one to talk to. No one really asked him, "How are you? How are you doing?" In the sense of truly meaning that. How sometimes we could just be like, "Hey, man, everything okay?" And you really want to talk, but you could tell they're not really interested. I personally experienced that. I lost my sister in 2012, and being an entrepreneur, when you're running a business, you really know you're isolated because majority of the people that are around you are clients and probably your employees. So you really don't have that outlet. But when my sister passed, I really took that hard. And the only person that I probably would have gone to would have been my mother. But my mother had lost her daughter. So I really didn't want to put my grief on my mom. And that's one time in my life that I say, wow, I need someone to talk to. And I immediately got my mother into grief counseling. And then I started seeking out counseling myself. And that was the first time that I had really, really saw the need in my personal life to kind of like head things off before it got really bad.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. He answered my questions, Rodney.
Okay, great. Um, I wonder, I don't know if you know this or not, Castellano, before we move into the book, is that I wonder how those statistics that Bobby was talking about with the young black men, male suicide in America. Now we know because we talk about it quite a bit on this platform, but that there's definitely a rise in those statistics with young black men as far as dying by suicide. Do you know in your research how much of that increase is related to, I wonder how much the spike may have to do with, well, you just wasn't keeping good statistics on black men, or it was so underreported because in our community, it is becoming less and less taboo for us to talk about mental health. Now, we still have a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but it is becoming less and less taboo. And I wonder how much of that was, do you believe in your research, is was underreported or not so good statistics? And now that we're keeping very good statistics, it looks like it's a sharp incline of young black men dying by suicide.
To be honest with you, I have not done the necessary research to answer that
Okay,
question
no
intelligently.
problem.
This is
No
something
problem.
that I just was made aware of last month during Mental Health Month. I did take the initiative to listen to some psychiatrists who were sitting around at a roundtable discussion about this,
Okay,
and they tend to
gotcha.
point more towards social media as being the cause. Over the last 10 years, where
Okay,
those numbers really took a spike, they are beginning to relate that to social media, but they have not themselves gathered enough data to really come to a clinical, understanding of why that is.
okay. Well, it looked like there should be a rise in, I guess, all the race groups. We don't like to say race too much around here because we know it's a made up construct, but all those
Hmm.
25 and below folks are using it, and in fact, well, anyway, that's a whole nother subject. So look, Castellano, look, let's move to the book. I know you said the book is going to be released, published here next month or so, and that is The Return of the Divine Masculine Spirit. Look, talk to us about your upcoming book. What inspired you to write it, and what is it? What does it entail?
So the book entails a lot about really me looking at a reflection over my life and comparing it to other clients. I spoke with a lot of my clients. I spoke with other men that were in my circle, and just getting a kind of, I want to say, somewhat of a salad bowl of some of our issues as black men. And why is it that we tend to deal with problems in silence? Um, so the book really speaks to that. It speaks to some of my success, but it also speaks to failure. I wanted to be authentically open and transparent in the book. So I didn't want to paint myself as having it all together, because as men, I don't feel that any of us are perfect. But I think by writing the book, it gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves and at least strive for excellence, because we still have an opportunity to get better. As long as we're still here breathing and we're willing to do the work, we have the opportunity to grow. So in the book, I speak about some of my regrets. I speak about some of my failures. I speak about some of my success. But I also just put it all together and relating it to where we are now as men, our community, our family. I just think as black men, we definitely have an opportunity to really make an impact on our families and on our community, especially if we come together in brotherhood. And I just think that that's a great place to start for us.
Okay. Well, the book is not out, so obviously myself and Bobby haven't had an opportunity to read the book or at least excerpts from the book, so we can ask proper questions. But so I guess I'm going to ask a question. I'll ask Bobby if he have anything, but I'm going to focus on the title, "The Return of the Divine Masculine Spirit." Now, my question to you is, there's been all of this hoopla or talk or whatever you want to dub it as, of toxic masculinity, right? And I would like to know how much of this book goes into that, or if it does not go into that, then what are your thoughts on this whole talk about toxic masculinity?
Well, the book has absolutely no mention of the toxic
Mm,
masculine man. Or one of the things that I really wanted to focus on, and even the organization, we're not here to bash anyone. We want to take a
right.
serious look in the mirror at ourselves as men. And our sisters are
Okay.
beautiful creatures. We love them. They have done a tremendous job in the community and families. So when I speak about the in the book about the divine masculine man, I'm speaking about the wholeness of a man who recognizes that he has a purpose here on earth, and that we were not created to walk alone. So in that divine masculine man, that's a man who is intentional about his mental health, that's intentional about his health in his body, his spiritual wellness, and also his economic development and his leadership skills in his family and in his community. And if we are working and focusing on being what God has created us to be, in the sense that we have a purpose here on earth, if we're looking at that and we're working towards that, to me, that's automatically going to make us better as men. And once we're better as men, that's going to allow us to have better family constructions. They're going to have us families that have better unity and better unified. And ultimately, that's going to create, of course, better communities. So when I speak to the divine masculine spirit, we're talking about men who are cognizant of their mind, their body, their spirit, their economic development, and leadership skills.
Okay. Bobby, you have anything on this up and coming book, The Return of the Divine Masculine Spirit?
How are you promoting the book? Are you promoting it through, Amazon? But are you also promoting it through any local bookstores, any black-owned businesses, things like that?
So we're going to use all major platforms to promote the book. It will be on Amazon. We are going to start having it on Barnes and Noble. But I'm also going to have a lot of what I'm calling ground networking sessions. So I plan to go around the city of Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and do some speaking engagements to really engage with brothers, give them an opportunity to not only to read the book, but also be a part of the movement, the Five Bands of Brotherhood. I look at the book as being the birth of the organization. So in that, we're just looking to really grow, whereby which we can promote the book, but also bring men to the table where we can have an open discussion about how we can become more united and more unified.
And I guess my final question would also be, I'm assuming your target audience would be, of course, all black men, but like what we discussed earlier about the age range between 14 and 24 seems to be where we have a drastic issue in terms of self-importance, self-worth, to where people are basically losing their grips on life. Is that one of your target audiences? I'm just assuming with this book where you're trying to reach, or are you talking about from teenagers to much older adults?
Our target market, we state in the book, is the ages of 22 to 72. We do understand that um, all ages probably can benefit, especially with brotherhood. So we will have some community initiatives such as reaching out to high school students and then also having some mentor programs for men who may be over the age of 72 who feel a need to pour back into other men. So in our initiative, I want to say that all men in all walks of life are welcome to join the organization because we do see value in us as men and we all have the capacity to learn, but we also have a lot of value that we can teach and pour into other men. I mean, I'm 63, and I am amazed sometimes when I talk to my younger nephews, and especially when it comes down to technology or things that they are working on or some of their ideas. It's kind of refreshing to know that we have a lot to learn. We're still in a learning space while we're here on Earth.
And I think learning space is somewhere we should all be constantly while we're
Mhm.
walking this planet, because I just have my own theory that the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. So I think we should be in a constant state of learning, to make each other better before our time is up here.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we're having a lot of great feedback, getting some good feedback. I have a young man who is working with me, Jess Caver. He is putting in a lot of work and really getting out the word and networking and talking to men. He actually scheduled the opportunity for me to be here today with you guys through Rodney. So the momentum that we're getting right now is somewhat surprising to me, but then another part of me is not because I really am beginning to learn that as men, we're looking for this because how often do we get together, maybe to watch a game or maybe to have drinks or something to that nature? Is usually around fun, a fun activity. We really don't have the um I don't want to say we don't have the space, but a lot of times we don't take advantage of allowing ourselves to be in a space where we can be vulnerable and really speak from an emotional state of mind and really be able to share with someone what we're really dealing with and what we're going through. And I think that as men, that's one of the reasons why we have, you know, issues even within our own families. We don't have the opportunity to really express ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, look, Castellano, I appreciate that, and definitely, man, shout out um, to Mr. Cavers there, to Jess Cavers. He is kind of my point of contact between Atlanta and Chicago as far as some of the initiatives and some of the things that you guys are doing up there. And definitely look forward to continuing to work with him. So, look, with Bobby's question, you already kind of let us know as far as how to get your book when it's upcoming and all of that. You're going to have it on some of the major platforms, and you're also planning on doing some visits to some of the cities where I would like to say the cities where black men, where the black spirit of men dwell, and so that's great as well. But look, for your website, for your Five Bands of Brotherhood initiative,
Right now, we're asking for people to reach out to us on Instagram. The
Instagram,
website,
okay,
because the website, along with the launch of the book and organization, will all take place next month in August. So right now, you can
yep.
reach us on Instagram, which is Five Bands of Brotherhood. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm also on LinkedIn as Castellano Dear. And our email is the number five, B, brohood at gmail.com. So any of those ways, if you want to reach out to me and drop me a line, we'll be eager to listen and get back in touch with you. And we're really loving the feedback right now because when I'm talking to
Yeah.
brothers, it's really giving us an idea of how we want to lay the foundation down for the organization and what brothers really need. And it's just been amazing at how vulnerable some of the men have been when we just simply talk about an organization such as this. A lot of them are extremely excited.
And yeah, I do remember you telling me that the website is under construction. So look, I cannot wait until that website is finished and up. But until then, man, people got how they can reach you. And so look, man, congratulations on all the work that you guys are doing. And we definitely are looking forward to going to that website and really becoming a part of this initiative. So with that, Castellano, man, we appreciate you. And look, brother, we look forward to having you back on. And hopefully, man, you'll be giving us some outstanding news and what's happening in the communities, man, with black men. So, but anyway, brother, we appreciate you. Okay.
Okay, I thank you guys for having us on, and you guys have a beautiful, beautiful day, man. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Righty. All right. That was a pretty good it's pretty good. Yeah, Bobby, you see, he's
Very
out there
interesting.
trying to do quite a few things, and
Yes.
look, man, I'm just look forward to. I've been working with these brothers in Chicago, man. It's been real good. Working with Jess Cavers up there, and he's pulling together a coalition of black men, man, and hopefully and I tell you what, it is helping in growing our audience there in Chicago. I've
That's
watched the
great.
numbers go up. So yeah,
That's great.
sometimes we have to collaborate and just do those kinds of things. And
Hmm.
Rodney Adams' brother, it looked like we got you back on and got you Rodney get those technical right fixed right when we're getting ready to go into the hot topics, man. But look, Rodney, you missed a good thing there, man, but it's okay. He it's a lot of initiatives. He's just now getting a lot of things going. Even with the book won't be released until next month. So there was not a whole lot to ask. We just wanted to give this brother a platform to expose what they're doing in Chicago. So there was just not a whole lot to ask, man. But look, I'm glad that you're back on and you are absolutely right on time.
And glad to be here and be part of this conversation. And I do hate I missed them, but I catch it in the episode and really see. where we got points of intersectionality. So I love collaborating with brothers. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to double tap, Rodney. Are you on your phone?
I am on the phone.
Okay, could you do me a favor? Could you turn it? Could you turn your phone to the portrait? Or no, the landscape. See if it'll just see if it's
Okay.
not locked. Yeah, see if it. Well, no. It's all good. It's all good. Turn it back to portrait. I thought it was gonna adjust right with you. It's good. We'll have to just go with that. And so it may look a little different, but hey, we got you on. So that's the main thing because we definitely don't want to miss your topic for today. And
Yeah.
but look, hey, I'm up first. Bobby, you will go, and then Rodney, you will go last. I've already let the folks know, Rodney, that you will that your topic that you will be talking about, which is the real effects of corporate greed on the economy. So they know they're ready, man. They're prepared for you to give us some of that brother. And so we're looking forward to it. But anyway,
Yeah.
so without further ado, I'm going to get started with my topic, which is the whole Mitch McConnell health issue, along as far as and as well with Lindsey Graham. Now, what I'm going to talk about specifically, there are so many things that can come out of those two gentlemen situations. Okay, I
Yeah.
am not going to. There's enough publications, there's enough podcasts, there's enough radio shows talking about the things that about the suspicion around all of this guy's death and this guy's illness. I'm not really going to talk about that. I'm going to focus when I think about. I think I'm going to do Lindsey Graham first. And so what I'm going to focus on is the nepotism that's going on with Lindsey Graham and the white privilege. They just put this guy's sister, who I believe is just a. I'm not going to lie. I did not research this woman. Okay. When you are firing black 4-star generals and putting majors that was in the National Guard, I don't have time to look up this lady. But what I did hear though is that she I think she's a homemaker and she worked with special needs kids or something, blind or something. I don't really know, so I'm not going to act like I know. But I'm going to focus on the nepotism of the whole Lindsey Graham situation and this pretend to be meritocracy that they're always talking about. Well, you just plugged some woman because the old son of a Klansman there in the White House said, "Hey, I like her," and you put her in there. And for Mitch McConnell, I'm going to talk about what I believe is some missed opportunities, man, for the Democratic Party to do what they do and miss opportunities that Republicans would never miss when it come down to them having the same type of situations. But I did take the opportunity to go to News One, and I'm going to read a little bit from News One about who am I going to start with? Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham. So here we go. And this is straight out of News One. It is called "The GOP Kept Lindsey Graham's Senate Seat in the Family." So it says, this week, in the aftermath of the U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham's death, Republicans chose the second option. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster announced that Darlene Graham Nordon, I'm assuming that's how you say it, Nordone, Nordone, okay, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, will serve out the remainder of Graham's Senate term after his sudden death from a ruptured aorta. Nordone's appointment came after Donald Trump publicly urged McMaster to pick her, calling it a fitting tribute to one of his closest allies in Congress. Lindsey Graham died. His governor appointed someone to temporarily fill the vacancy. That doesn't make the decision beyond criticism. South Carolina voters didn't elect Darlene Graham Nordone. Trump's endorsement undoubtedly influenced the appointment. And yes, there are experienced elected officials who could have stepped into the role instead. Critics have every right to question whether family ties should matter in filling one of the country's most powerful offices. But compared with Washington's usual habit of treating the public like mushrooms, keeping us in the dark and feeding us nonsense, this is almost normal. When the senator's sister got the job, because everyone knows she's the senator's sister, feels like the most transparent thing the government has done in years. It says less about Darlene Graham Nordone and much more about the institution she's walking into. So, look, gentlemen, before I go into the whole thing with Mitch McConnell, I'm gonna ask your thoughts on this. Now, look, you can talk about anything, like I said, that you want to talk about with the death of Lindsey Graham, but again, just just the privilege, that the hypocrisy, the white privilege. Can you imagine if someone's sister, if it was black, and look, this Black Man's Roundtable. So Rodney, you've been on before, you know the deal. We get down. We don't try to cover up stuff. You can only imagine what would happen if it was if it was, put it this way, if it was our senators, if it was Ossoff or Warnock, God forbid something happened to them, I'll end up using them on the other side when I talk about Mitch McConnell. But to put this lady in there, man, the Senate is supposed to be different than the lower chamber with the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives was designed for every man, because that's the way it was, for every man to leave his community. That's why it's only 2-year terms. Now we know in U.S. government, the elections are what, 2, 4, and 6 years. There's nothing more than 6 years, right? There's nothing more than 6 years. And so that is the most, that is supposed to be, I don't know what is dubbed the gentleman's, whatever the Senate is, the upper chamber, and you taking this lady, and I'm not saying a lady because she's a female. I think some of the greatest senators we have had in the past have been women, but you take this person, okay, who has absolutely no experience in not just government, because I've also known some of the best politicians to not have experience in government too. But you take but the nepotism and the way I think that, I don't know how much the Democrats are jumping over this as far as mainstream media and legacy media, because I just really don't watch it. But they should be having a field day with this. And that lady, in my opinion, just should not be there because she's his sister and because Donald Trump mentioned it. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to focus on that. And but I want you guys to opine. Yeah, Bobby, I tell you what, you go first since you're up next, and
Okay.
we'll let Rodney get oriented to what we got going on.
Well, I found it interesting. I was looking because I remember, just focusing on this. Um, the hypocrisy about it's always the Republicans. I'm sorry. It predominantly comes from the Republican Party. I recall when last year, maybe it was the year before, when the clown in Oval Office named his daughter-in-law as the head of the RNC. She was the RNC chair. And I remember thinking to myself, now imagine if President Obama had named Craig Robinson, his brother-in-law, as the head of the DNC. There'd be all kind of crazy talk about, how, I look at this here, this nepotism, yada, yada, yada. And don't forget, how he had the clown in the office right now, how he had his daughter, his daughter and his son-in-law involved in so much foreign policy, in his last term. So here we are now with this appointment of Lindsey Graham by the state of South Carolina, this appointment of Lindsey Graham's sister to the Senate. And listen, I understand the story, the background about Lindsey helping raise her after the death of their parents. That's commendable, but that's not what this is about. This is nothing. This is about the Senate, okay? Casting a vote in the Senate. This is about Senate discussions of law and legislation, things like that to get passed. And so, it's amazing to me how we see this consistently over and over and over again. And I'm just amazed at times how this stuff just happens right in front of our face. Just playing right in front of our faces with this stuff. And that's
Yes,
what
sir.
really grinds me at times, to see this blatant hypocrisy just being thrown right in our faces. So that's where I stand at this point.
Rodney.
Well, very, very, very well put, Bobby, and Rodney. Uh, the most disturbing thing is we can look at right here in our own backyard with David Scott's passing, the fact that his daughter is on the ballot. She's running
Really?
actively for that seat. So we got on one side, one party is following the rules, and then we have another party that's circumventing rules and taking advantage of all of the loopholes. And so uh, the thing is, man, we've been as a nation so dependent on uh, everybody following protocol
Mhm.
that we didn't have any laws set in place. It was just everybody following every president following the protocol and the standards of the office. And then we got somebody in who does not follow them at all. And so what they're showing us is that we have to go back and revamp as a nation. We got to go back and revamp some of these things and make these laws because these people can't necessarily be trusted to do the right thing. That same premise applies with especially with Lindsey Graham. Remember, he said when Obama was in office, no, if Supreme Court seat comes up, the next president during an election year should appoint the person. And then he turned
Absolutely right.
around 8 days before the election and pushed Amy Coney
Yep.
Barrett through.
Yep.
So we're literally speaking about that. The irony is a hypocrite has been replaced in a hypocritical fashion. And this manifests itself is nothing more than a legitimate attempt to hold on to power because they know that their way of thinking is fading and it's diminishing, even amongst the second and third generations in their own families. So they're really grasping in onto the power of it, man. And it's really frustrating for those of us who thought, to Rodney's earlier point, that we could perform our way into success in this nation. And now we're seeing not necessarily, dude.
Absolutely.
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 I,
And I'm
and
gonna wait,
I have
Rodney.
so. go- Oh, okay.
No, no, no.
Yeah, because I
No,
have so
I'm
much.
gonna
I
wait.
have so much. Okay, cool. I have so much more to say about it, but uh since I put the two into one topic, so I really only have the one topic, but I don't want to just take up all the time. So I'm going to move on because these two are they're so related to me. What's happening? Because I'm
Yeah.
not looking at, yeah, you know what I'm saying. And Rodney, you've already said some things that could fit right over into what Mitch McConnell and I think Bobby did as well. And so that's why I wanted to put those two things together. But the other one is the Mitch McConnell and his health. And before I start talking here, I'm going to read again right out of and this one is shorter, right out of News One, news1.com. And yeah, so I'm gonna start reading here. Yeah, after being MIA from Congress for more than a month and reportedly hospitalized for nearly a month, GOP Senator Mitch McConnell has broken his silence with a written statement about his health and what appears to be a proof of life photo in a hospital bed alongside his wife. According to MLKY, which published the full statement released by the Kentucky Senator's office on Sunday, McConnell claimed he was hospitalized due to a fall that left him briefly unconscious. That's in quotation marks. And that he had not suffered anything more serious like a heart attack or stroke, as many online have speculated was the case, especially after it was reported that audio from a 911 call revealed that someone at his home suffered, quote, cardiac arrest. Now, okay, I know that most people know about this, but I just wanted to read it for those who may not know about it. So here's my take on this thing before I let you guys jump in here, is that again, Bobby know that I talk a lot about opportunities that I feel that the Democratic Party misses. There's a reason, and I hate to see it because there's nowhere else hardly for black men to go, and this is the Black Men's Roundtable Network. And there are really no other places for black men to go when it comes down to politics. And this is why, if you wonder why you're bleeding off black men, it is because I guarantee you, well, here's what I'm going to say first about Mitch McConnell. Either that man is as dead as a doorknob or he's brain dead. That's my belief. I don't know. I have no proof of that. But what I'm saying is this, and I said I was going to bring up the senators from Georgia again in talking about Mitch McConnell. And what I'm going to say is if Raphael Warnock or John Ossoff had any kind of procedure, if they had to get a toe removed, my guess would be that the Republicans would be all over everything, trying to make those guys show their bare feet, that they can walk up the Senate steps, or look, even with nothing wrong with their brain. And that's what they would be doing. Now, again, I'm not a huge, consumer of mainstream media or legacy media, but I do check it out so I can report here. That's probably my only reason. But with that being said, I know that there is not this outcry. There is not this proving. The Senate should be calling some kind of special session and say, where in the world is Mitch McConnell? And then if he don't show up, they'll be like, well, he don't have to show up because he doesn't have to show up. But you know what? It creates the speculation around what a lot of people already know. I do not see the Democratic Party doing that, knowing that this man is in a terrible state. And this is what you have to do, because they would definitely be doing it to you. And everybody like being winners. And when we're looking around and looking at how the Republicans, how they do things, when there's something wrong with a Democrat, they're going to try to hold on. They had no problem hurrying up telling you that Lindsey Graham was dead, because guess what? There's a Republican governor in the state of South Carolina. Mitch McConnell, however, is from Kentucky. Andy Beshear. And in my opinion, Andy Beshear, brother, you need to call a special meeting with this guy. Now, we know he's not going to do it. Call a special meeting, call something to say, look, I need to talk to you because you've been missing in action. The Republicans talk about AI more than anybody in the world. Now you want us to believe some AI video, and I think that that picture has been proven to be AI, with him in the hospital bed with all his street clothes on. And so, Andy Beshear, you're a Democrat. Here is the opportunity to call this man to a meeting in Kentucky, or you go on Capitol Hill, wherever. But here's what I know. You're not going to do it. So, gentlemen, that is my issue with this whole Mitch McConnell thing. I'm not going to talk about this man. This man should have been gone. This man was freezing up at press conferences a long time ago. So I'm just not going to personally get into that. But I just think that the Republicans, they did not give Joe Biden a chance in hell, when this man was not even displaying that there was nothing where this man had been to the hospital and did all this stuff and was missing in action. So, but anyway, gentlemen, like I said, I got these two guys, and I don't want to hold up the whole thing. So please, Rodney, jump in, brother.
Well, man, it's the saying that I say all the time. Democrats play by the rules and Republicans play the game. And so these guys, again, do everything to hold on to power, and it's an act of desperation. Just a quick stat that I looked up. I dabbled in politics a little bit on the little side hustle. White men are 30% of the country's population. White men occupy 60% of elected office. So there is a factor of 2 of overrepresentation of what they actually are in the population to where they are in decision making and policy making positions. So I think we have to keep that in mind, that as their numbers are falling, they're holding on the power with a death grip, because they know that as soon as these scales get balanced in a meritocracy, black women, black men, people, if we're pursuing education, thanks to different world and all and the surge at HBCUs, we're pursuing education at a greater clip than they are. So we're eventually going to surpass them with regard to being qualified and educated uh, space. And that's what they're doing, and they're holding on. Keeping it.
You
Yep.
know,
And you know what,
I
Rodney? Before Bobby go, that's what they should be doing. Because I'm gonna tell you something. No one is just gonna turn power over to you. So, but anyway, Bobby, go ahead, brother.
no, what I was going to say is, the irony with both of these senators, McConnell and Graham. I think back to when President Obama was in office, and like you said, they blocked him from being able to fill the uh, Supreme Court justice seat left vacant by Anthony Scalia.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the likes of McConnell saying, well, no, we're about to have an election, and the American people should be able to decide who the next president is, and therefore who would be the next justice on the Supreme Court. By the way, that is not a written rule. That's just something they came up with,
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think about that now. Unfortunately, when we look back, that person was Merrick Garland, who was
Yep.
nominated for that position by President Obama. But looking back at it, just see the whole hypocrisy with McConnell and with Graham on that issue and how important it is, because we're talking about a lifetime appointment, which should end, but that's another topic for another day. But they also, it's also a statement to our country as well, as far as um, this term limits. This is ultimately, pretty silly when you have someone like Mitch McConnell still holding on to power as a senator, and we don't know still, even though I did see the Washington Post, they said that the picture was authentic. They said that, but I don't, we have our own doubts about whether or not that picture is authentic or not. There's just a lot of questions about that photo in general. But to have someone like that in that position, and not know fully about their health is silly. It's happened before with the Democrats with Dianne Feinstein. It's
Yep.
happened before with both parties. But regardless, it's something that we should not have to be sitting here with people in their 80s, making decisions that can barely move around, maybe barely think, like we mentioned before, McConnell freezing up at press conferences, literally where his whole face just freezes, and he can't say anything. He's just staring blankly at you. That should not be the case. For people that are representing our government, especially in such a high position as a United States senator. That's ultimately ridiculous. So it's a reflection of just how desperate they are to hold on to power. And you nailed it. That was one of the comments I was going to say later on about Andy Bashir, Governor Andy Bashir, who is a Democrat. That's why they're trying desperately to have Mitch McConnell hang on, or appear that he's alive, because they know who he's gonna, appoint to that seat, temporarily, even if it's, temporarily to serve out that term. So, and by the way, it may be someone that the good people of Kentucky, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, may find
Exactly.
interesting, when it comes time to voting for an actual senator. So, that's a Democrat. So that state has been red for a long time. But the opportunity to put someone in there that the people may say, hey, this guy wasn't bad, or her wasn't a bad representative of the state in the United States Senate, I think I'll vote for them when it comes time for that special election. So it's just a reflection of where we are in this country, and the desperate attempt to hold on to power by all means necessary by the Republicans, to hold on to this agenda. And by the way, they're doing it with a do nothing Congress anyway. They're not doing anything. They're not doing anything that's really helping the people of this country to begin with. It's a do nothing Congress that is totally under the wing of the current occupant of the White House.
Yep.
There's no impartiality
Yep.
there. There's no independent thinking going on. Let's just do
Yep.
whatever he says. The Constitution be damned.
Yep. So, but anyway, like I said, gentlemen, there's so much more I have to say about this, but I'm not. And so look, without further ado, Bobby, brother, you are up next with your topic. Take it away, sir.
So hey, listen, we were very skeptical from the beginning, with good reason, to the quote unquote Iran deal that was negotiated just a few weeks ago. To basically stop the fighting with Iran. So let's go back over it again, and once again, let me remind everyone before we get started. Remember, we had a deal in place, the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was agreed upon by several different countries, including China, Russia, Germany, the UK, the EU. Okay, they all agreed to the JCPOA, including the United States and Iran, of course. So, Mr. The felon in chief ripped it up, and so he never replaced it. And so now that they're continuing this propaganda about we're never going to let Iran have their hands on a nuclear weapon. Had you kept the thing in place that we already had, they already agreed to it. They already agreed to the inspections, etc. So I just have to keep reminding people of that first, because all you're going to hear is the propaganda coming from this administration about how they're saving the world from Iran from having their hands on a nuclear weapon, when that deal was already in place that was preventing them from doing it, and you ripped it up and put nothing in place. But let's keep going. All right. So what has happened now is we basically started striking Iran again. Let's just put it that way. All right. So that 60-day agreement, which we were all shaky about with good reason from the very beginning, about what does this mean? You got 60 days to negotiate, and it's basically shaky at best, and it's a page and a half long. All right. The JCPOA, as we told you before, took 2 years to put together. It's a 159-page document, and they think that they solved everything with a page and a half. Absolutely silly to begin with. So that JD Vance is a hell of a negotiator to get a page and a half done, and you see how flimsy it was from the very beginning. I saw an interview where they were asking the current occupant of the White House about, hey, do you think Israel will respect you, and not do any strikes on Lebanon? He said, oh yeah, they'll respect me, they'll respect my wishes. The next day, Israel start firing on Lebanon. They ain't listening to you, man. And so he gives all of this talk now about, if you listen, he wants to tell all of us how many 1,000 times over, they have no navy, they have no this, they have no that. We've destroyed this, we destroyed it. Again, to look so important, to try to seem like he's so important in history. Oh, I've done this, and he wants the rest of the world to think somehow he's saving everybody else from them having a nuclear weapon. When I just told you, and we've said repeatedly, we know that the JCPOA was an agreement that already had them agreeing not to develop one, and they were abiding by it. Don't listen to nobody else tell you this garbage like they weren't. Yes, they were. And even your own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, she made that speech before Congress saying the same thing. All right. So just all lies, again, being led by Netanyahu. We talked about that, into getting us involved in this war. And now he doesn't know how to get out of it. So he's just, again, talking in circles. So let's go back now to what's happening here. So the deal basically collapsed. I have to sometimes laugh just to keep from getting angry and from crying, and it's somehow how silly this stuff is. Um, Iran was firing on commercial ships. All right, let's agree to that again. But you listen to the felon, they have nothing. Oh, they have nothing, right? So, he likes to brag and talk like it's almost like a 12th grade bully, beating up on the incoming freshman. All right. That's what it is with us, with Iran. It's like we're expected to beat Iran, dude. You don't have to keep telling us over and over again. We are expected to beat Iran if we're talking about militarily, them against us. This is nothing new. You don't have to keep telling us the same thing over and over again. But that's what he does. So it's almost like, a heavyweight fighter fighting a lightweight fighter and beating him up, and then wants to tell you just how good he is because he beat up a guy that weighs about 40 pounds less than he does because he's a heavyweight. And I may be off on 40 pounds on that difference. But that's what he likes to do. So, here we have this thing collapsing right in front of our faces. Nothing that should be anything that's surprising in any of this. So now we've reimposed our naval blockade of our Iranian ports. We're firing now on Iran, hitting them. They said supposedly we even attacked bridges now. So, our U.S. military bases now over in that region, they're at risk of getting attacked. We don't know anything that we've heard recently about what Israel's going to do with regards to again attacking Lebanon. So now he's focusing again. Even now, just saw today, he's talking about Canada. He's talking about Greenland again. He's already talked about Cuba. It's all over the place. He has no idea what he's doing. Everything is just flying by the seat of his pants, and it's all to make himself look big and bad. He even talked about imposing a 20% security fee, so to speak, and then he brags and says that since we're the one doing all the work, you're the one that started it, clown. You're the one that decided to go out there and do this when all the other presidents knew what it would lead to. So when you say that, we're the ones leading all this and you want to try to impose a fee, you're messing up oil reserves, you're messing up the flow of oil again. So as a result, the gas prices are going back up again. The price of crude is going up again because of your actions. You're the one that's messing this whole thing up for everyone. And then he even says, like, well, we could take the oil. We don't need it. We don't need it. Well, how many times did you hear before that him always talking about, see, when we went into Iraq, we should have taken the oil, by the way, which is a war crime. You can't do that. You can't take a sovereign nation's resources just because you
Exactly.
want to take them. But he kept saying, we should take the oil. We should take the oil. Now he's turning around saying, well, we don't really need it. We don't really need the oil. It's all over the place, man. There's no rhyme or any type of clarity to what he's doing. So we constantly live in this space of what are we doing? We're risking American soldiers' lives by doing this. And by the way, it doesn't also even speak to the fact of world travel. When we are traveling to other countries and leaving out of here, it's putting tourism at risk because we're Americans and they look upon us, they look down upon us with disdain now because what we're supposed to represent to the world, we are not doing it because of the person that is sitting in the White House. So, I just wanted to throw that out there again to remind everyone where we currently stand. With seeing the results again, a ceasefire that none of us really with any intelligence thought was going to last. 60 days was just too much. I think he just rushed to get a quote unquote deal before his birthday to try to make it look like he actually did something. And before the fourth, he didn't want that hanging around before, the America 250 stuff, would go on. So it's all once again, this is a reality show game that he's playing with all of us and with our lives. And it does not surprise me in the least bit that of Iran's actions. And once again, to hear him repeat the same thing over and over again, because he wants you to forget about the JCPOA, but to repeat the same things over and over again and keep telling you how they have nothing and they're begging for a deal. You're saying the same thing you said the last time, but yet and still they were able to cause chaos right there in the Strait of Hormuz, which was open before this, and now we're having to occupy it and deal with the ramifications of what we've done. And when I have to say we because it's our country, but the ramifications of him being led by the nose by Netanyahu to get involved in this mess. So I'll stop right there and get you brothers' thoughts on what's going on.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'll
Hey,
say
Rodney, go
as
ahead
a
on, man. Jump in there.
veteran, yeah, I'll say as a veteran, it does grind my gears to hear so much wasteful use of our resources, whether it's our military might or in everything. And so one of the main things when I was in the Navy, one of the main things you could get in the most trouble for was waste, fraud, and abuse. If you had waste, fraud, and abuse, man, they would nail your butt to the wall. So here we are experiencing real time waste, fraud, and abuse of our resources from the highest level with the highest stakes. It's crazy, man. And but this is what the people who voted for him voted for, man. This none of this is a mystery to us. It's not a surprise. We all saw it coming. We just didn't know who it was gonna be, but we knew it was gonna be some foolishness at his hands because that's who he is. In absence of anything substantive, which is never for him, he's going to manufacture something to draw attention he loves to create problems, and then when he gets it set back to 0, acts like he really moved the needle to 10. And so we know that, we see it coming a mile away. It's the other people who voted in hopes that he will be something different and better than what he's shown, demonstrated, and articulated. And here we are, bro. So, it sits squarely at the feet of the people who put him back in office, man. Although we are all impacted, we had an old saying I remember teaching you to say back in the day, the good gotta suffer with the bad. So here we are, man. We're suffering because of these decisions, which is why we have to mobilize and get more engaged during election seasons so that we can make sure no one like him gets in office again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Roddy, thank you for your service
Absolutely.
too. You're
Absolutely.
on with 2 other veterans as well. So
Yes, sir.
appreciate your service too to this country.
Yes, sir.
Your
Yes, sir.
opinion matters.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, all right. So you heard it from Bobby, you trolls. When you come on here, you talking to 3 veterans. So, make sure in your comments you put how long you wore the uniform and before you start talking to us. Every now and then, right now, I just love talking to the trolls a little bit.
Yes.
But anyway,
They ain't got nothing better
Bobby,
to
what
do
I would
on our
say, man, is
platform.
that
Worrying about what
nothing
we
at all.
got to say.
Nothing at all. Absolutely.
Hey, man, I
Absolutely.
love.
And you better believe they hate that that is all 3 veterans, they hate that. But Bobby, what I would say in general, man, is that this regime is definitely led by people, by a criminal enterprise, in my opinion, by a criminal enterprise. Now, we're not going to talk about this today, but we know that there are one of us probably going to be talking pretty soon about what's happening. We understanding why that they wanted the president of Venezuela to take him in custody is because they are going to utilize they're going to try to have this country, this man, to link our 2 senators right here in the state of Georgia to some criminal stuff to try to hopefully to help him overthrow the election. So what I'm saying is we're talking about a criminal element, okay? We're talking about what is happening in Iran. All this stuff, Donald Trump could not point out Iran on a map. He could not point out the Gaza Strip. He don't know what's going on. But however, you sometimes need a criminal, but he is criminal minded. We got to remember, like I said, that's why I refer to this guy. And sometimes I let people know and remind people that what's in the White House right now is the son of a Klansman. And we know that all of those Klansmen, they try to call black gangs, Bloods and the Crips and all that. They try to call them, they love to talk about that they're gangs, right? Well, we got to remember that those so-called gangs started out as protection elements for the black community. Now, they might have turned into some other stuff, especially when you're talking about the CIA and the FBI getting involved. But however, what I will say is this, is that what's a true gang is the Ku Klux Klan, and that is the son of a Klansman. Now, this guy they needed a madman. They needed someone who really don't know what's going on, but they needed his criminal brain. And that is why we cannot forget about Project 2025. And that is the blueprint for that should be Exhibit A when they get that. By that I mean Project 2025 should be Exhibit A when and if the Democratic Party ever hold these guys accountable and bring them in front of the people. And of course, Donald Trump should be criminal number 1. So ground zero, put it that way. And so what I'm saying is that we see now how it's laid out. These are absolute criminals. Everything that they're doing. That's why, Bobby, it doesn't make sense. It looks like the left hand don't know what the right hand is doing. Criminals, and remember, most of the time, right, they never get criminals on the actual crime. Right. Most of the time, they get them on the cover-up. Remember, they always say the cover-up a lot of times is bigger than the crime. But anyway, Rodney, if you don't have anything to say, or Bobby, if you want to close out your topic, we can do that. If not, we can move on to Rodney's topic.
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead
close
and
it
close
real
Bobby.
quickly. I'll close it real quickly. So Speaking of Lindsey Graham, don't forget everything he said about the current felon in the White House, the felon in chief. He was 100% accurate about prior to him being elected. And it's so aggravating to see these people who won't stand on business. You won't even stand on your own word about this man. And you flip flop, you turn into a jellyfish, once he gets in office. And everything that you said, including the vice president, JD Vance, everything they said about him was correct and accurate in their description. And then they just totally folded when it came time to go, for power. So you see how desperate and how unscrupulous these people are. They don't care. You can't listen to anything that they say and hold it as truthful because you see these kind of things, these type of accusations. Graham was absolutely correct in his depiction and description, but he totally flip flopped once he got in office. What made it so more disgusting, and then I'll close on this, is the fact that you knew how much this man disrespected your best friend in the Senate, John McCain. You didn't
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? Like that didn't even matter. So, you see this kind of stuff and that's why I don't have much respect at all for people of that kind of character. So, people can, you can give thoughts and prayers and all that kind of stuff if you want to. That's your prerogative. I'm just gonna leave it alone.
But look, here's the other thing is that I think it was a comedian say the other day that Donald Trump should, if Donald Trump should actually get the Nobel Peace Prize because he have actually stopped the war in Iran some 36 times. So,
Hunter
so
Biden
maybe
said
he
that.
should get the Nobel Peace Prize. But who said it?
Hunter Biden, he said it.
Yeah,
Oh, it was Hunter Biden. Okay,
yeah,
that's who it was.
Yes.
And
yeah,
yeah, but what I
yeah.
was
But
going to
he
talk, what
keeps
I was going to
stopping the
say,
war.
Bobby,
Yeah.
is that you exactly keep stopping the war. He's stopped it 30 something times. But what I was going to say, Bobby, is that you talk about a lot on this platform about the election being stolen, right? And so the thing of it is that if you listen to Donald Trump, he keep talking about he doesn't say how it was stolen. He just said it was rigged, it was rigged, it was rigged. And we know that these people do a lot of projection, right? So my
Mhm.
thing is, I thought about the last time Bobby was talking about, well, maybe this thing was actually stolen, but of course the opposite way in what Donald Trump is saying.
Mhm.
And to me,
Mhm.
Bobby, I just wanted to say on the platform, and I wanted our listeners to hear me tell you that, brother, I think keep doing what you're doing with it because I'm telling you, uh, if they are, Donald Trump is saying the election it was rigged. And so if the election was rigged and you won everything, okay? If you won everything, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna do
Mhm.
what Bobby do on here riding a lot. I'm gonna put it where the goats can get it, okay? If the
There you go.
Falcons were playing if the Falcons was playing the Saints, all right, and so and the score, the ending of the score was 30-27, and the Falcons won the game. And if you heard a Saints fan say, the only thing you didn't watch the game or anything. You didn't watch it at all. Only thing you know is that the end of the score was 30 Falcons and 27 Saints. And a Saints fan say, oh man, the refs, man, that game was rigged. You already know that he knows that game was rigged for the Falcons, right? So that's pretty much where the goats can get it,
Mhm.
right? And so when
Mhm.
Donald Trump keeps saying the election was rigged, and you won all of the elections. You're in the White House, you're in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and you're talking
Mhm.
about it was rigged. So I just wanted to say on the platform, not one-on-one with Bobby, that Bobby keep on talking about it because this guy we know is a narcissistic idiot and he definitely projects everything. So I want to start hearing him say the election was rigged in favor of the Democrats. He just keeps saying it was rigged. So that's all I want to
Mhm.
say. But anyway, Bobby, I
Mhm.
know it's kind of related to what you were saying, but I just wanted to put that out there publicly because I just want you, and plus I want you to keep talking about it. But look, Rodney, brother, without further ado, you are on deck.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. So,
Yes, sir.
40 years ago, I graduated from high school. I know I don't look like it, but hey, man, black don't crack unless you smoke. Um,
You already know.
Uh, 40 years ago, I graduated high school, man, and one of my last jobs, before I entered into the military, I worked at Burger King. If you're in Atlanta, Burger King on North Avenue is still there. I worked at Burger King, and I worked with grown. I'm talking about people who had their own home. I don't think they had cars, but I know that they had their own places to live, and they were able to sustain themselves with a couple of part-time jobs. Now, the minimum wage back then was $3.35. So when you look at the minimum wage today, is $7.20. That's a 2.1 increase. And to give you some real context about that, the dollar in if you had $100 in 1986, it would be equivalent today would be 306. So the dollar is tripped. The cost of living has gone up exponentially in every other facet of life. And I think a loaf of bread was like 59 cents in 86. And then when you're talking about the fact that rent, if you paid $930 for rent in 1986, of $900 right now, it would be, I think, $2,100. It's $2,000 more for rent. That's what I know it is. It's $2,000 more for the same price. So you got that going up at 3 times clip. Same with the dollar, but the rate of the minimum wage is only 2.1%. How will people expect it to live? Now, the thing that makes it really crazy is when you dig deeper into the wages of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, guess what their salaries went up? 10 times. 10 times. So they went from making $2 million, averaging $2 million a year, to averaging $20 million a year in that same time frame. So that's when the corporate greed starts manifesting itself. I was blessed 20 years ago to be laid off out of corporate America, and it was at that point I realized I wasn't going back. But for those of us who, to Robbie's point earlier, pursue education and pursue these professional careers, to get out here and get a job and make a decent living for ourselves. And even for those people who don't even want to go to college, they can't make a decent living. And the thing to me is disturbing that you're getting all of these rich people, everybody building fences and gates. And it just made me question, man, why wouldn't they want more people to be able to have a decent living so that you wouldn't have to build fences and gates? You know, Bob Marley got a saying saying, a hungry man is an angry man. You know, the most dangerous animal is not a scared animal, it's a hungry animal. So when you're starving people, when you're putting people in these dire straits to make these harsh decisions unnecessarily, you can't do no more with $20 million than you can with $18 million. So if these CEOs start distributing some of that money, literally letting it trickle down like the myth of trickle down that they always espouse, basically allowing the rest of society to eat, we'll be a better society collectively. When you look at other nations, they don't have this same level of disparity. And so it's this corporate greed, man, is grinding my gears because I'm seeing real time the fact that if you are a law-abiding citizen, if you don't have a advanced degree or a degree, it's tough as hell to even be able to provide a living. And we ain't talking about kids. Oh man, don't talk about a family. So we have to, as a nation, look at ourselves, hold a mirror up, and say, is this really the kind of nation we want to be? And make better decisions at a corporate level, even as stockholders. We got to start pressuring some of these CEOs, because a lot of us own stocks now. Let's start pressuring them to have a more equitable distribution throughout these organizations, man, so that our nation does not suffer. Because that's what's going to end up happening. And they're not going to be able to have enough walls to keep us off of their book. That's it for me, man. That's my topic. So I don't know how you guys feel about it. You know, that injustice, man, really has been weighing heavy on my mind when I look back and I see this, man.
Jump in, brother.
Hey man, look, Rodney said a lot. You know, that's that's something that's what's often talked about is, you know, when you hear people that are, let's see the best word I want to use, educationally deprived. All right, let's just say that. they always focus on the social programs. Always, well, this is why we can't, do this. This is why they're always constantly focusing on the social programs. But nobody mentions what Rodney just covered, which is the corporate greed and welfare. I left corporate America 25 years ago, officially 25 years ago. And I haven't been back since. And I realized then, at that time was like, I'm gonna put this on me. I'm gonna see what I can do.
And on my
And
story.
absolutely. So but you realize, man, corporate greed and people don't pay attention. And it's fine if you get a job in corporate America that you can retire from and see the benefits, health wise, health benefits, all that good stuff. That's fine. I mean, if it works out for you, that's fine. It doesn't work out for everyone. And that's what capitalism was never designed to work out for everyone. Okay. So a lot of times you get, people throwing other stuff at you, socialism, communism, to throw you off track. But as it relates to corporate welfare, it's something that's been going on for the longest time, and all people want to get up in arms about are personal, welfare, and who gets it and who doesn't. And by the way, the people that you see here on this program that all look the same, we're not the biggest beneficiaries of welfare. Period. Not even corporate welfare. That's been a something that's been slandered and thrown around and applied to us for decades, and it's simply not true. So even with corporate welfare, we're not the ones that are benefiting from the government, these government contracts. It's not the majority of us at all. It's very little. But that's something that most people don't talk about when they get to describing everything else. They go straight to the social programs. This is why we can't do this. The government wasting money on things like welfare. And don't talk about you know corporate welfare. They don't mention it. They don't talk about it because they feel like if you are one of those that talk about it, then you must be for socialism, or you somehow think, which is wild to me, somehow think that corporate CEO, if we started increasing salaries of the employees, somehow boy, they're gonna lose that Maserati. They're not gonna be able to get it serviced. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous mindset. But people have it. People really have it. You'll hear the Republicans, especially when they make their arguments and say, well, that person worked hard for that, and they should be able to enjoy their money. They worked hard for that, ignoring totally the fact that we're consumers. They didn't get there by themselves by just doing magic. No, the consumers have to consume the product, or be willing to pay for the services that corporation offers. So, it just amazes me at times, the lack of education that people have voluntarily joined or just won't educate themselves on. So Rodney is hitting on something, man, that everybody should pay attention to because it's true. It's been going on for decades, but people don't want to address it.
Yes, sir. I agree 100%. And like you said, Bobby, this is capitalism. And Rodney's topic is corporate greed. And what we receive in America in those, especially, well, I was going to say especially those grades K through 12, but even higher education, is we receive a corporate education as well. The education system in America is actually built and designed for you to go on these quote unquote, yeah, I'll say it too, plantations that maybe 39 to 40, but maybe 30 to 45 billionaires in America own. And they are built for you to go there. They are not built for you to have an entrepreneurial spirit and that kind of thing, to be able to operate on your own. And so, and that is why, even with COVID, I'll go all the way back. I'll go all the way back to the housing market crash back in when Obama took over back in 2008, when the housing market collapsed and the auto markets collapsed. And so, of course, black people are going to be the first people to get laid off on these corporate plantations, basically, to get laid off. And then they got fired. I don't want to hear this stuff about the last one hired, this first one fired. No, you're black, you're out. That is what was happening. Then it happened again, of course, with COVID. So Black people had to conjure up their entrepreneurial spirits all within less than a 20-year time span. But guess what? It is so much easier for us to be entrepreneurs than the colonizers who came up with this stuff, with these corporate plantations, right? And guess what? I am one who believe that in a way it's almost like I hope something else happens where we are fired again, and so that Black people can say, hey, look, we need to stop depending on that. We need to stop depending on that, because there are a whole lot of Black people who decided there's no way in the world I'm going back on that corporate plantation, watching all these people get all of this corporate welfare, all of these rich white men at the top getting this corporate welfare. And so even then, when it looked like it didn't benefit us, I actually think it did. I was almost, look, I was telling people in small circles and even some larger circles, if I had the podcast then, I would have been talking about it then on there, which is that, okay, let it keep happening and watch who comes out. Watch who comes out. Watch who the real entrepreneurs are in this country. So, Rodney, you're absolutely right, man. But yeah, this is corporate welfare. Like Bobby is saying, but there's also a very corporate education system. These people are breeding and spitting out people who are made to not think outside the box, who are built in these circles, in these squares. And I'm just glad that so many of our people decided, man, that I'm not going back. Black men and Black women, even with this stuff happening, man, within the Asian community, with the young brother getting shot and everything, right? Absolutely. And so right here in Atlanta, man, they had a not a workshop, I guess it was some kind of fair or something that I heard about, that I got wind of where they were teaching Black people do how to do nails and all that stuff. A lot of the things that we go to the Asian community for, they were teaching. And from what I heard, you guys, I don't know if you heard about it, they said, men and women, they said the line was around the block. And so sometimes, I'm telling you, I don't panic when stuff happens in our community. I know it looks bad. I know it looks like we're losing, but a lot of times we're just not. We're just going back to what we know to do and what's in our spirit. And so, but anyway, Rodney, great topic, brother. If Bobby don't have anything else, man, feel free. Bobby, if you don't have anything else, Rodney, feel free.
Well, I close it out. You guys brought up something, man, that I ignored, and I should have even added this into my initial commentary. My last job, I processed corporate welfare. I worked for a tax consulting firm. Our largest client was the nation's largest retailers at the time, which was Sears and Walmart. And so I literally amended tax returns to get them about an average of $1 million a year over the course of 2 years, just on corporate welfare, just on tax credits that were available to them that they had bypassed in the previous years, man. So you guys are not off base at all. That's $1 million for per location. And I think it's 3 different locations that qualify for that credit. And so it's real talk, man. And we, to Bobby's point, we look at, or other people look at the impact of individuals and think that we're the drain. We're not. Walmart, McDonald's, Burger King, I mean, every big corporation y'all can think of, Lowe's, Home Depot, those were our clients, man. And we were out here grinding and finding tax credits for them to offset their income. So we need to understand that we're not the problem, they're the problem, and we got to make sure that we get legislators in place who can at least balance the scale. I tell you, I don't need the scale tipped. I just need a balance. And then we can go from
Quick example is what just happened recently with the reflection pool. You know, no big contract, giving it to his boy. He goes out there and f's it up, and then doesn't have a big doesn't have anyone to compete against him to go out there and do it again. That's the same. That's what
yeah,
we're talking about.
yeah. That's and that is it speaks to the old saying that we say that as a black person you gotta be twice as good to get half as far.
Hmm.
That's a real life example And so when people try to say you're playing the race card, man, that's the reality. We have countless examples of it. From Lindsey Graham's sister to to Jared Kushner negotiating international treaties with Israel and Saudi Arabia. Come on, bruh. That.
It's just,
So yeah, all of these examples that we have in these administrations of how they don't allow our talents to shine, but they allow their position or their proximity to power to promote them. It's gotta stop.
yes, sir. Just one big grift, gentlemen. One big grift.
Okay.
But anyway, look, man, great Rodney. We're glad you were able to get back on. Glad you were able to fix some of the technical issues. Wasn't able to get that camera turned to portrait, but that's okay. We're gonna make you look like a movie star, man. In post production. So, brother, don't worry about it. We're just glad that we were able to get your commentary back on. And exactly, we're glad we was able to get your commentary on, man, and to get you, on this episode for Rodney, Mr. Rodney J. Littles, who is enjoying much needed vacation time. So Rodney, we look forward to having you back in a couple of weeks. And but anyway, good show, gentlemen. I enjoyed it, and I know our listeners will. And with that, catch a new episode of Flipping Tables podcast on the Black Man's Roundtable Network, the first, second, and third Thursday of the month. All new episodes drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, we will see you in them sweets and them streets. Peace. Hey, family. If you like what you saw, visit our website at blackmansroundtable.com for more information or to check out more content. Until next time, we'll see you in them sweets and them streets. Peace.
Yeah. Flipping table. We flipping tables, breaking chains. Unapologetically black in our veins, no apologies for how we rise. Black excellence before your eyes. We built the culture from the ground. Our voice, our truth, our sacred sound. They try to silence what we say. Yeah. But we show up every day. We flipping tables, breaking chains. Unapologetically black in our veins, no apologies for how we rise. Black excellence before your eyes. Flipping tables, unapologetically black. Flipping tables, unapologetically black.